By late 1941, the international order was collapsing into a series of interconnected conflicts. Nazi Germany had already dismantled the borders of Europe, occupying territory from the Atlantic coast to the gates of Moscow. Simultaneously, Japan was aggressively carving out a massive empire across the Pacific, seizing territory to fuel its growing military ambitions. With the world fracturing into hostile imperial blocs, the neutral United States found its policy of isolation increasingly difficult to maintain. This chart reveals Japan's critical strategic bottleneck. Their domestic oil production was a fraction of what their military required to function, leaving their entire empire dependent on foreign imports. To halt Japanese expansion, the United States leveraged this dependency by imposing a total oil embargo and freezing Japanese assets. From the perspective of the Japanese High Command, the embargo threatened a total domestic collapse within months. This pressure led Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto to develop a high-stakes gamble, a preemptive strike to cripple the American Navy in its own harbor. Japanese leadership intended for the strike to paralyze the U.S. Pacific Fleet, creating a strategic window to seize the oil fields of Southeast Asia without American interference. The tragedy is often framed by what was known. U.S. intelligence successfully decrypted portions of Japan's naval codes prior to the attack. However, translating these signals into a specific warning proved impossible. The sheer volume of intercepted data obscured the strike's exact timing. While Washington struggled with the intercepts, a massive Japanese carrier fleet moved across the northern Pacific under absolute radio silence, remaining undetected for a week. The mission relied on specific engineering. Standard aerial torpedoes would typically bury themselves in the shallow mud. Japan solved this by adding wooden aerodynamic fins that allowed the weapons to level out almost immediately after hitting the water. This combination of technical adaptation and a breakdown in intelligence analysis allowed the strike force to reach the coast of Oahu completely unannounced. At 7:48 a.m. on December 7th, the base was operating on a typical Sunday routine. Sailors were heading to breakfast or still asleep in their bunks. The peace was shattered by two waves of bombers and torpedo planes. Within minutes, the harbor was obscured by towering walls of smoke and fire. The most catastrophic loss occurred when a bomb detonated the forward magazine of the USS Arizona, sinking the battleship and killing over 1,000 sailors instantly. Survivors of the initial blasts were forced to navigate a harbor covered in burning fuel, as thousands of gallons of oil leaked from shattered ships. In a 2-hour window, the abstract resource struggle of the Pacific theater had transformed into a horrific human reality. The final count was devastating: 2,403 Americans dead, and the core of the Pacific battleship fleet either sunk or severely damaged. The following day, President Franklin Roosevelt addressed a joint session of Congress, famously characterizing the morning as a date which will live in infamy. Within hours, the United States formally declared war on Japan, followed shortly by a declaration against Nazi Germany and Italy. The attack catalyzed a massive shift in the American identity, forcing the government to mobilize its entire industrial economy for a global conflict. Today, the USS Arizona Memorial stands over the wreckage, marking the exact spot where the United States was forced into the war. Decades later, the question remains: could a different interpretation of the intercepted codes have prevented the disaster, or was the Japanese plan too well executed to stop? While the strike successfully neutralized the Pacific Fleet for months, it also ended the era of American isolationism, ensuring that the world's largest industrial power would lead the fight in the